Taking the opportunity, I'm doing some dry firing out here in the garage, or you'll hear me refer to it both as dry practice and dry fire. I like the term dry practice better, and I just here recently picked that new term up, okay, because I'm not really dry firing, I'm dry practice, and then we do live fire. Okay, so it's not the same thing. But so what I want to do is just do a little 15 minutes. I hope I can cut this down to 15-20 minute general overview of dry practice, because I tell the people that come through my private CCW courses, I harp on it over and over and over, that you need to have extensive practice with the firearm and manipulating it so that you know how to run it when the time comes, if you ever have to use it. We don't want to go to one 8-hour training or one 16-hour training once a year or once every 5 years, then all of a sudden in a crisis have to try to figure out how to use everything. So the purpose of this tutorial is to kind of give my former CCW clients and some friends something that they can refer to, because I know everybody doesn't have the same amount of time to go train, once, twice, 3 times a week, like I do, that I'm able to enjoy and do. Okay, so this is not an all-inclusive tutorial, just understand that. So let's start with the very first basics beginning, right? And that's the general overview of firearm safety, all right? Number one, all guns are always loaded, right? Number two, don't point the weapon at anything you're not willing to destroy. Number three, keep your finger off the trigger. And when I say keep your finger off the trigger, that doesn't mean here, it doesn't mean here, and it doesn't mean here. It means registered, indexed on a point completely off of the trigger and the trigger guard, okay? And then the last, of course, is know your background and what you're shooting, all right? So that's our overall briefing. You guys know I beat it to death. The number one violation is pointing the gun at themselves or somebody else with the barrel. They can, oh yeah, no, hey, do I go over here, right? Or they point, or this is a trainer, okay? They point the gun at themselves when they're loading it, when they're putting it back in the holster, appendix, side, or they hand it to somebody. Oh yeah, oh here, you want to hold my gun? Oh no, it's empty. There's nothing in the chamber. All guns are always loaded. So I'm not even going to treat this gun, right? Except for demonstration purposes, because I know it's a trainer gun. I'm not going to point it at myself. Even when I load it back up or when I hand it to somebody, I would hand it to them with the slide open over like that. They would hand it back to me. I'm always watching where that barrel's at. And then I have like a little 360 safety circle around me, right? Or you could go up, all right? But that way you generally know you're not going to point the gun at somebody. And we want to keep it between our shoulders, right? Whether it's all the way up or down, right? And we want to keep it between those two, so even when we turn, so that we don't point at somebody. Number one thing that I see people violate. Okay, so what is dry practice? Dry practice is basically stated is manipulating the firearm, okay, in all the different processes of loading it, unloading it, pulling the trigger, aiming it, practicing your stance, drawing it from a holster. If you're laying on the ground, right, whatever you might do, but you're running the gun as if it were loaded, but it's dry. It doesn't have any rounds in it, okay? But the manipulation is the same, okay? So we're going to do that, so that gives us practice getting hands-on and manipulating the gun. So why are we doing that? So that we can create, again, automaticity. Okay, what is automaticity? It's subconscious performance. Okay, and you can only create subconscious performance, right, through correct, numerous repetitions. It's automated, right? That's what we want with the processes of the manipulation of the firearm. Okay, because the portion where we just pull the trigger, aim it, and pull the trigger, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right, is a very small part of removing garments, coming out of the holster, getting the correct grip torques, right? Getting the correct stance, using the right aiming process, doing the right grip, trigger press, and all that kind of stuff, okay? Not to mention loading, unloading it, putting it back in our holster, and all that kind of different things. So I'm not going to go into great detail on every one of those, all right? But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to give everybody a format so they can do their own training safely, okay? Do their own dry practice, because you don't want to have, in the middle of a crisis and having not touched your firearm for however long, 6 months, a year, 3 months, have to go into a crisis and then start trying to manage the firearm. What we want is we want our brain to be able to process what's going on, and this to be automated so that we actually just move into what we need to do correctly, okay? So that's what dry practice is, all right? So no matter what the skill set is, it's gonna cost you time, effort, and money, like it or not. If you're not willing to do those three, then you're not gonna build up a skill set. That's just the bottom line, okay? But a lot of, with the firearm, especially with concealed carry, a lot of it can be done once you've learned the correct process. Then you can spend your own time, do it yourself, all right, and correct yourself by videotaping yourself or having a coach, all right, or going to more training, however you want to do it. But the majority of it would be spent with you going over the process, but you have to know the correct process first. So the next thing is, let's talk about our dry practice range, okay? This is a dry practice range for me. People, my clients that have been in here and trained with me know this is where I do all my dry fire. I do some outside too, because I have it set up so you can do that. But I do the majority of it in here. I do all my other training in here also. We do a little bit of grappling with the firearms. We do it with knives, not real knives, but training knives. We do some striking stuff, and then we do drawing from the holster, and we do it from different positions, that kind of thing. And so everybody knows that I've got everything set up in here for that. I even have distances measured out. My mat's 15 feet long, so because we know the average shooting probably going to occur anywhere from 3 yards to 5 yards, right? So we do the majority of that training within that distance, okay? So what happens is I tell everybody they need to have a protocol when they go to do this. You can't sit in front of your TV, right, and practice shooting things on the TV set. It's complete amateur hour. Don't do it. Wherever you do it, have a protocol, okay? And so my protocol always is, and I've explained it to everybody who's been through the firearms training with me. They know that cupboard, all my loaded firearms go into that cupboard, okay? And if they're loaded, they stay in there, they get locked up. All the ammunition that I'm gonna, all live ammunition gets broken down, taken out of all the firearms, gets put in there, also gets locked up. Then I go over to the other table, or this table, which is sanitized. It doesn't have anything live on it. It doesn't have any live knives, it doesn't have any live pepper spray, it doesn't have any live ammunition, nothing. Although the guns may be a real gun along with the training gun, it's been completely inspected, okay? So I open the slide, I visually and physically inspect it. There's nothing in there. I look through it, double check, make sure that there's nothing in there. I check my magazines, I check my holster, okay, timer, and I have inert rounds, okay? These are not real rounds, and they're never mixed with real rounds, okay? So then once I do that, I move everything, because that's the process every single time. I never change that. I don't put live ammo over there. Hey, I'll just sit down and do a couple quick dry fires real quick, or a couple dry practices real quick, 10 minutes, and I'm gonna back up. No, it always goes there so that it's always the same. The next thing, my dry practice range in here, I have a concrete wall on that side, I have a concrete wall there, a concrete wall there. So everything that I do is in this direction in a 180. All right, so I have the garage and a concrete wall on the other side, so that I know when I'm using, even if I had made a mistake and there was a round accidentally put in one of these and it went through here, it's not going to go through the garage and the concrete brick wall. It just won't happen with the ammunition I use. So That makes it safe. Then I know that I always do my training in this area or a designated area outside where I do it. And I always do it in this area, all right? And that same time, I shut the door. I just text my wife, hey, I'm dry firing. If it's not an emergency, I'll be out 20, 30 minutes. Which brings me to, I only do dry fire maybe 20 or 30 minutes, okay? Other than that, you start getting a little bit bored with it, okay? So we want to keep it fresh. But frequency, all right, and recency, it outweighs intensity. So if I come out, if you came out here and said, I did 4 hours of dry fire, it's not going to be as well received and blueprinted, okay, as if you came out here 10 minutes, 7 days a week and manipulated the gun, okay? So I don't go out of there. Nobody comes in here, all right? This is all secured and sanitized. The guns are all secured and sanitized. And then I know I can turn to and do my training, okay? It sounds like, oh man, that's a lot of stuff. Well, it really isn't when you have a protocol in place and you do it the same way all the time. It literally comes out here. It takes me 2 minutes to download all my stuff, double check everything, put it on the table, shut the door, or let everybody know, set my stuff up, get my gear on. Within 4 or 5 minutes, I'm dry firing, okay? And the other thing about my dry fire when I come out here is that I always have a plan of what I'm gonna do. And we'll talk about that a little bit further here. Again, I can't, because of the time limitation, and we're not actually in training, I can't get into like how I modulate different things. I don't, that I'll say, hey, today I'm gonna work on, I just want to master grip, right? And so I have a procedure. I come down, I have a way that I move my garments, whatever kind of garment, like this particular one, I come to my belly button, hand north, south, I come here and the hand goes down and I master grip it at the same time. And that means I push, I stab it down, I grab it, and I get what I call a master grip on it. If I get a master grip on the gun, things are gonna go pretty good from here. If I get a real sloppy and I have to readjust, see, things aren't going well. All right, so that's what we call modulation. And we're not gonna talk a lot about that. We're just gonna talk about the 3 speeds of training. And actually, we're only gonna talk about 2 of them, and I'll just mention the 3rd one so that you kind of know what it is. So what do I need? Well, I need the holster that I use, okay? So all the practice I do is for self-defense because I carry a gun all the time, every day. Everyday carry for me is what I have right here. So that's what I practice with. I practice with the holster, I practice with the gun, and I practice wearing the clothes that I normally wear when I carry it. A nice loose t-shirt, I don't carry it with the belly this up to here so that I know that I can get a fast, and then I'm gonna start from here. This is where I train from most of the time. If I be talking to somebody, or I'm gonna, what? And then I need to practice with the clothes that I wear normally. And then sometimes if I have a jacket on, I'll train with a jacket. Okay, so that's a little bit about the modulation and what I'm gonna do. Before I ever get to that, right, I have the right equipment. I also have a pack timer out here. Okay, we'll talk about that a little bit. The gun, the magazines, and the main thing that people need to practice is firearms manipulation. So I get a lot of people, and I've had people call me and say, I don't remember how to load the gun. That's simple. If you've been taught and then you just do this once a week, for 10 minutes you'll remember how to do it, okay? So that's what the inert rounds are for, because they act just like regular rounds. So your dry practice can just be downloading your gun. It's all safe, everything is just coming out. The gun, talking about the workspace that we talk about, indexing the gun, looking at the magazine well, loading the gun up, letting the slide go forward, and coming into a good shooting position, all right? So it could be unloading the firearm. Some people have problems with that, all right? So I'm gonna come back here, slide back, lock it back to the rear, shoots the round out, just dumps it out, okay? Again, inert rounds, they're not real. So I wanna just practice loading the gun, all right? Or, so a lot of people get caught up on because they don't understand how the gun works, even after they've been through training. I don't have to have the slide open to load the gun. So this is where you come out and you practice with it. it's almost playing with the gun, but it's doing it in a safe environment and safe conditions where you know you're not going to hurt yourself, you're not going to hurt somebody else. You don't have to. So I can load the gun like this. A lot of people confuse this, like, well, how's the round get in there? You have to pull the slide to the rear. And now I can look in the gun. I can see right there, it's loaded. And I put the gun on safe. Okay, so that's part of the training process. I don't want to go a lot into that. So just manipulation of the gun itself too. So another big one that a lot of people need to train on, okay, I'll straighten this out just a little bit, is they don't understand the correct grips, all right, and the correct pressures and how to hold the support hand on there and how to cross their hands. I see a lot of teacupping. I see a lot of this kind of stuff. That's all part of your training, but once you've had that training, you can go back out. If you took good notes and you took a little videotape like we do in my classes, I videotape it for them and then I explain to them what I think the best process so that they can go back and practice it. So I talk a lot about the extend, prep, press. Extend, prep, press, right? So I mean, just if you just did this from the high compress ready, right? I come in here, extend, prep, press. So I hit the safety, I extend, I roll my hand up, extend, prep, press. All right? Extend, prep, press. All right? Extend, prep, press. And I can tell you by looking at the sights whether right where I hit, okay? So I'm building that automaticity. I'm building visual cues. I'm getting the correct torques on the gun, all right? I'm having the correct manipulation. Not something we want to figure out under stress. It's something that you have to do over and over and over. It's like any skill set. Again, if you're a surgeon, you don't want the surgeon cutting on you that, you know, hasn't cut anybody's tissue for a year, all right? You want somebody that practices frequently, has a lot of training, and updated. Well, that's, if you're going to carry a gun, you need to do that. Don't think that you have to go to the range every single day. The majority of really high-end shooters do probably 3 or 4 to 1. I think the ones that I've heard talk do maybe 3 hours of dry practice to every hour of shooting. Okay, because the actual shooting is just confirming whether what you're doing in dry practice is correct or not. Okay, so that's just manipulation of the gun. You're very familiar with the mechanics of the gun, how it works, right? So this is a single action, right? You may have a double action, you may have a striker fire. If you don't know the differences of what those are, you definitely need to get some training. Okay, so then the next step, all right? So now I've learned to manipulate the gun. I know how to load it, I know how to unload it, I know how the magazines work, I know how the ammunition goes into it. Another big one that people need to practice, all right, is a misfire, okay? So I come up here, so people understand if I had a live round here and I came up and I shot, boom, and let's say I didn't get the magazine in correct or I had a bad primer on the round or something like that, I need to slap, rack, reacquire, and fire. You should do several hundred of those with with dry practice, okay? And then when you go to the range, you can mix these in with your live rounds so that you can practice it. It happens occasionally. The round's not going to go off because you didn't seat the magazine correctly, the gun's dirty, or the slide didn't get set correctly, or the primer on the round is bad, or the spring in the magazine is bad. There's a number of things that can go wrong. So a process that we have that we know that works very well is that we come up here and we'll fire, right? Nothing happens. I'll slap, rack, and reacquire and fire. Okay, and that's done fairly quick. And then there's another process is if the gun, if it's jammed up and you have a double feed. That's a completely different set. But that's just one of these skills are basically just the manipulation and handling of the gun. And there's more of them, all right? Like I said, I don't want to go into a 20-minute, 30-minute class, okay? Because that's where you have to go to class to learn this stuff. But I want to give my clients and some friends an overview of what they should be practicing And then so I have some of that stuff already up on the Facebook and some of the other places. And of course, they can always call me, or we can always do training, whatever the case might be. It's not difficult. Some of this stuff is very, very basic, but understandably, because people are busy or because they're a little bit intimidated by the firearm, they don't practice it. And at the range especially, when you got that boom going off and people shooting around you, well, you can really get yourself very well versed in it, just doing it in the private, practicing it by yourself. Okay? Okay, so then the next step would be, is I have my holster, okay? So this is how I actually carried the gun. This is the holster that I actually carried in. I carry appendix. Different people carry it different ways. I don't care. You have your own way. Carry it. All I care about, and my concern is for you, is that you practice with it. Instead of just, oh, hey, so-and-so's a really, Navy SEAL taught me to shoot like this, or Army this, or Marine, some Marine taught me to shoot like this. I went to a Marine class, Navy SEALs. Okay, that's fine, but have you practiced drawing your gun from that holster 500 times? Okay? Because this is going to be one of the worst times in your life when you have to draw it, if you actually have to use it, right? So we don't want to have just one class 5 years ago. Again, I don't want to keep beating that horse to death. And then we're going to have what we call a little a pack timer here, and I'll explain kind of what that is. So what I can do on this pack timer is I can set the timing on it, so I can make a timing standard. So when I train, I have there's three different training modes, okay? And the first one I'm going to call technical linkage speed, okay? Technical linkage speed. Why do I say technical linkage speed? Because you're only moving at a speed of which you're consciously thinking through what you're doing, okay? And you're going to have some internal dialogue telling yourself what you should be doing, so that your brain is registering all this, and of course then your subconscious is registering it. Okay, so technical training speed. I want to work on my draw, right? So I come in here and say, okay, I just want to work on my draw here. So I'm going to come from this position. I come down. I'm going to go to my belly button. All right, move this hand at the same time. Master grip. I'm going to stab. So I'm coming up. I'm going to come through here. I'm going to come up, and I'm going to fire. Okay, so that's technical training speed that I'm just figuring out how I want to manipulate the firearm, okay? Technical linkage speed, right? So I'm linking everything. So my hand's gonna move here. I come down here, I'm gonna stab. I can't look at it when I'm doing it. I can't go, oh, how do I, right? You can initially, until you figure out, like, where do I want, this is where you figure out, does your holster stay in? Where does my hand go? All right? And then you use, there's big terms for it, proprioceptive indexing, right? You know where your belly button is. You know where it's at, so you know where your hands go. I don't have to look in the mirror to touch the tip of my nose, okay? Just your body, you know how to do that. Your brain it enables you to do that with enough practice. Okay, so technical training speed. So I'm going technical training speed. Right? And when I look at that, I'm like, and I know my sights are on, everything's ready. Bam, once in a while, I'll pull the trigger. Right? So the gun's not really firing, and it's going to be a little bit different when you're actually firing the weapon. But if you have good mechanics, and you're practicing them good mechanics, and you're getting the good grip, and you've got good torque on this, and you've got good torque. So if you have good mechanics, and you grab this and you pull it straight to the rear, okay? So I come up, I'm just practicing the mechanics of doing this, and now, okay? So that was the extend, prep, press. So now I'm doing it from the holster, right? So I come up here. So technical linkage speed, right? I don't need to do it really fast. I want it to be, everything to be very correct. okay? And I want to think through the process. So then, once I get good at that, or I feel like, oh, I do pretty decent at that, then I want to add a time standard onto it, all right? So now I want to stress, I want to add, this is the stress machine, right? I want to be able to do it in, I think I have 1.5 seconds set on here. Yeah, and it's a little faster than that. I have 0.4 seconds on here. Okay, so I'm going to increase that. I'm going to give myself 1.2 seconds just to demonstrate. Okay, so can I get my weapon out, get on sight, and pull the trigger in 1.5 or in 1.2 seconds? All right, and this is where having a partner, or you can videotape yourself when you're doing your dry practice, so that you can see what you're actually doing. Because a lot of times when you're doing it really quick, to be able to do it in 1.2 seconds, you're running subconsciously. You're not consciously going, I'm lifting my shirt, I'm putting my hand on here, and I'm going forward. You already did that in your technical training speed, okay? And linking it, right? Now you're doing it under time and making yourself go faster, all right? And you have to get the technical down first, and then you add speed to it. And then you have to see yourself to see what you're doing, because you'll start doing things you didn't realize you're doing. A lot of tipping, or ducking. Stress creates that, right? So the sooner we can see that, we can start weaning that out of our training, okay? And then we get more used, we get somewhat inoculated to moving faster, but keeping good, clean form, okay? So here, I'll try. We're gonna go 1.5 seconds. Okay, so I can see here, I'm on the gun. I got it out in time. I pulled the trigger. I could see my sights were on pretty well. I was not real happy with, I might have had my thumb up just a little bit higher than I wanted it. I haven't dry fired today, all right? Even though I'm setting these standards, I said this thing, we want to build a abundance of speed and skill, because under real conditions, that's going to be you're not going to do as well under real threat and real fire as I can do in here. But the better I can do in here, and the more automaticity I have, the better I'm going to do in a real condition. That's why we dry fire. Okay, so the next thing might be, maybe I wanted to stick my hand in my pocket and I want to practice. And I use what I call a C draw. I come up here, I come here, I run my thumb down. Maybe I only have one hand that I can do that with, right? Maybe this hand's injured, so I'll stick my hand in there. So that's part of my dry fire. I'll sit in a seat. I'll sit down in a chair, do something in there. I'll get on the floor and do it. And then, like I said, we go all the way to, I have my friends come over and we roll around with the training firearms and practice accessing the firearm under a lot of pressure. In other words, somebody on top of you trying to take the gun away from you, okay? But we have to master these basic processes of manipulating the gun before we do that. And you can do so much of it through dry practice in your dry range, at home, set up, ready to do with minimal amount of time. So that's just going to be kind of the quick tutorial on dry practice in your dry range at home. I know there's probably a thousand other questions. Like I said, I don't want to go extensively into it, but I have talked to some friends about it, and I'm kind of amazed that people are like, no, I've never heard of that. I've never done that. And especially with people that come in for training. If you carry a firearm for self-defense and you plan on having to use it, even if you don't carry it, even if you have it in your home, you need to dry